Hi everyone, it's Rebecca Imholz at the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to today's webinar, The Pivot, Living and Working During COVID-19. As we get started, I am delighted to introduce our moderator for today's The Pivot. He is John Carroll. He is the president of Unlimited Performance. John helps organizations, teams, individuals be more profitable, more productive, and have more fun. John also serves our community in many ways, as he is on the executive board for the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. And John is really the founder of the Pivot. John, it's so nice to see you again. Unfortunately, virtually.
Yeah, unfortunately, and still virtually, right, Rebecca? Absolutely. And Rebecca, you are steady Eddie when it comes to making sure that the chamber is front and center as we move through the pandemic and come out of it as safety allows us to. So thank you for all that you do. Welcome everyone to The Pivot. This is a weekly series of informational discussions on our local, regional, and national issues in the midst of and following the pandemic. This event is presented exclusively by the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. My role as moderator is to introduce our guests, get the discussion started with some questions, and then give those attending the event live the opportunity to participate with questions that they can send through the Q&A function or chat, which Rebecca will be monitoring. Thank you for taking the time with your Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce to join fellow members in staying informed to help you care for your team, your clients and customers, and take care of business in post-pandemic conditions. Organizations are certainly flexing to the changing needs of their respective constituencies, and the two nonprofit organizations represented in this edition of The Pivot are certainly experiencing just that. Let's meet their executives and learn how they and their teams are addressing the increasing demands of those they serve. Our first guest today on The Pivot is Stephanie Kelley. Stephanie is the Executive Director of East Cooper Community Outreach, or ECHO as it's known. She holds a Master of Education and Bachelor of Science degree, both from Kutztown University in Pennsylvania. She has worked at several She has worked at several liberal arts colleges in the Northeast, and that was before she joined Columbia College as the Dean of Students. Passionate about matters of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Stephanie participated in the fall 2019 Low Country class of the Riley Institute Diversity Leaders Initiative at Furman University. A resident of Mount Pleasant, she and her husband Hoyt enjoy traveling, baseball, and spending time on the water. Stephanie, welcome to The Pivot.
John, thank you very much for having me today.
Glad to have you. Our second guest joining us for this discussion on community needs during the pandemic is Beverly Hutchison. Beverly is Director of Development and Marketing for the D Norton Child Advocacy Center with locations in Charleston and Mount Pleasant. She's responsible for the strategic direction for philanthropy and marketing for the center. Her first role with D Norton was as a child advocate volunteer way back in 1991 when the center opened its doors. Oh my goodness, Beverly. Her volunteerism continued when she joined the board of directors in 1996. Serving on the board for 5 years, Beverly held leadership positions, including fundraising committee chair, vice president, and president. And Beverly joined the staff as a part-time fundraising coordinator in 2001 and assumed the director position in 2013. She is a graduate of Clemson University and an avid fan. Beverly and her husband, Len, live in Mount Pleasant and have 2 adult children. Beverly, welcome to The Pivot.
Thanks, John.
Glad to have you here. Stephanie, let's get the questions started with you, please. The pandemic and resulting lockdown has put many people out of work and in need, making ECHO and similar organizations essential for far more individuals and families. Talk about the early days when people were starting to feel the impact and how you pivoted early.
Great. Thank you, and I apologize. There's an ambulance and fire truck going right down the street here. So, thank you. As I tried to prepare for today, thinking about those early days, there was so much uncertainty that was going on. And matter of fact, our board will laugh about the fact that we were discussing what if nobody donates, nobody wants to help during this pandemic, and so happy to report that our community has rallied, as it always does, to be able to help. But I will tell, in the early days, what I remember the most is that for a little while, the staff was sort of thinking, what is our role? What is our purpose? Certainly we know we're here to help the community, but anytime a hurricane is coming, at some point I tell the staff, go, be safe, and then come back and we'll be ready to help. And so I think originally people were sort of looking, thinking, when do we go home and quarantine in place? And we realized that we couldn't do that because we didn't know when this storm was going to pass. And so safety has been the primary concern all through all of this, to keep our staff, our clients, our volunteers, and everybody safe. And so while we've been doing that, we've also been balancing the fact that we figured out we were an essential service. You know, you'll remember in the beginning days, everybody's trying to figure out who was essential. We deemed ourselves essential. And I like to think that as we look back 6 months later, we're not glad, or not at all sorry, that we made that decision, that we are an essential service here. And in many ways, think about grocery stores were allowed to stay open. As I remember saying to the team one day, we are the grocery store for people who can't afford to go to the grocery store. And so it is essential that we continue to be here and serve people. So we very quickly, once we figured that out, decided we had to figure out how to do that in a way that limited personal contact, that made it easy as possible for people to get here. And so did lots of different things in terms of changing what we were doing, not what we were doing, but how we were doing it. And so we have a drive-through distribution food system now. We had a farmer's market where you don't get to pick your produce, but we just go ahead and choose that for you and drop it in your car. We moved to online applications for lots of our services, our financial assistance, our prescription assistance. Our case management is now all happening on the phone or through video. We use telehealth so we could keep having our medical appointments happening. We did consolidate some of our services, but very quickly, again, even some of our partners, like our mental health counselors, have moved to all video appointments. So for about a month, there were no mental health counseling appointments going on, but very quickly they got back into the routine of assisting people. We've come up with some new things and that we've been doing in terms of calling clients regularly to check on them versus waiting for them to call us and tell us how they're doing. We started some food delivery for people who couldn't get here. We've started the pop-up farmers markets where we actually spread out instead of having everybody come to Echo, really trying to do those around in more of the rural communities where people are in need of help. So, so while we've reduced our personal contact about sitting in an office with somebody, we, I think, have increased the ways that we're helping people in lots of ways. And one of the biggest parts is the communication. We're just doing such a better job of communicating with our clients, our donors who wanted to figure out what they could do to help, and the community so people would know we were here.
And Stephanie, I think those who are familiar with Echo know that Echo has always been responsive, but what I hear you saying is you became proactive with clients in a way that you hadn't had to do before.
We haven't, and you know, John, thank you for saying that. I was having a conversation with a colleague at another nonprofit this morning, and I said to her, there have been so many silver linings in the last 6 months that, and it is, we have found ways to do things that are actually easier for the people who need our help. And that is one of the things our team talks about on a daily basis. The biggest mistake we would make if COVID went away tomorrow is going back to doing everything the way we were doing it in February. We have got to take what we've learned in the last few months and again, make it as easy as possible who need help to be able to find that help.
Right, well put. Thanks, Stephanie. Beverly, the lockdown interrupted ongoing treatment of children and others critical to their health and well-being. How was the center able to adapt in those first few weeks and months to continue to fill those needs?
And listening to Stephanie, so much of her story sounds like a little bit of ours. You know, we kind of shut down March 17th. That was the day. And what we realized rather quickly was we too could not stop seeing children and families where there was concern about abuse. We quickly had to work with our community partners, with law enforcement, social services, and the solicitor's office to come up with a triage system. And then, you know, work out very quickly some protection for our staff. Of course, that's a primary function, is how do you continue to see children and families and keep everyone healthy when it was scary, you know, when we first shut down. Nobody really knew what to do. So we quickly established a triage system so we could see those most urgent cases where it was a protection plan was in development or the safety of the child was at imminent risk. And then for those children we couldn't see, we began rather extensive or intensive phone consultations. So that was the first couple of weeks we were in shutdown mode. As time went on and we recognized we were going to be in this position a lot longer, we recognized that we had to do some pretty major pivots for our world. We did not use telehealth prior to the pandemic. We certainly do now. So we had to figure out, how do you do a confidential, HIPAA compliant forensic interview of a child using telehealth? You know, first we had to find the right platform that was HIPAA compliant. Then we had to actually train our staff on how to conduct an interview when you're not face-to-face sitting in the same room with a child. We do still have the ability to do a socially distanced interview because for especially our young clients, our young children, they can't sit in one room by themselves and talk to a screen like I'm talking to you. They need to be in the room with the adults. So we still have that ability because we have these nice renovated facilities that we have a really large conference room where we can set that up. But telehealth became really important to us for forensic interviews. And then likewise for telemental health. When we went into shutdown mode, had over 50 children who were in therapy with our therapists at D Norton, and their treatment was interrupted. We could not be face-to-face any longer. So we had to, again, you know, we established the HIPAA compliant platform that we needed, but then we had to assess the needs of the families. Do they have the ability for this service to be delivered, you know, into their home with the proper technology? Our staff, who are very, very experienced and well-trained in delivering these evidence-based treatments in person, were not skilled and did not have the tools to do it virtually. So we had to train our staff. So a lot of these things were happening concurrently, so that by the middle of May, we were back up and running with telemental health, delivering these weekly therapy sessions in the home to the children so they could continue to heal. We continue to evolve, you know, it continues to go on longer than I think we expected, but really proud of the way our community pulled together. Our community partners were great support in joining in with us to problem solve and come up with solutions. And like Stephanie mentioned, some of these solutions are going to benefit us long-term, much after the pandemic subsides. You know, the partnerships that we have strengthened with our community partners will help children well into the future. And the ability to continue to do remote mental health, I think, will have a place, very definite place in the future.
Thanks, Beverly. You know, we've said it many times on earlier editions of the Pivot that, you know, necessity is indeed the mother of invention. And simultaneously, we consider so many things that we took for granted in the past that now we either appreciate or we can flex with or around depending on the situation, right? So
fortunate that these technologies existed. You know, we just had to think through the barriers to the privacy issues that we face, the confidentiality. How do we overcome those barriers so that children and families get the help they need and deserve?
Yes,
it was a good stretch for us. You know, it forced us to flex and stretch a little, and it's been good for the kids.
Thanks, Beverly. Stephanie, back to you. It appears that unemployment's going to continue for many people for quite a while. How has ECHO responded to families who would never have dreamed they'd even be in this situation?
That's probably been one of the blessings in all of this, is that we've tried to make this as easy as possible for people, but we have really learned it is not easy for people to ask for help. People want to do things on their own. that's no different from the people we were serving before this pandemic hit. But we have doubled the number of families that we are seeing on a weekly basis that are coming in for help. And you're right, John, there are people who never imagined. We've had people say, no, I used to donate to ECHO. I didn't think I'd ever have to ask ECHO for help. And so as much as we can to tell people that, everybody does what they can when they can. And when the season of life comes that you need help, you are paying it forward perhaps by donating to help somebody else at another time. So we really have recognized in some conversations we've had with our team, at one point, one of our staff members mentioned there are so many senior citizens who are coming through to get food that she's like, they could have been coming before this pandemic. Why weren't they? And we ask ourselves, well, why weren't they? And we thought some of it's because you had to actually walk into ECHO's doors and ask for help. Now you just drive through and you show your license and you live in this area. Great, we put food in your trunk and out the door you go. And so we've realized that for some people, there's a lot of pride associated with this, and that it's hard to swallow your pride and ask for help. And so, again, just trying to think about how do we let people know that we're grateful that will let us be a part of their time of need, and that it's okay. We had a young woman who called. Her landlord suggested that she call us for financial assistance. So we got some money through the CARES Act to be able to provide up to 3 months of rent or utility assistance or mortgage for people, because 1 month wasn't going to get it done. We might have thought that in April, but then as May came along and June came along, we here are now asking ourselves, what are we going to do after 3 months for people? Because there are people who just don't have jobs through no fault of their own. But her landlord told her to call because somebody else had gotten their rent paid through us. And she kept saying to our staff member, but I don't want help. And our staff member on the phone said, but do you have any way to pay your rent? And she said, no. And she said, but I don't want to ask for help. and again, my heart breaks for people, because I know, like, when everything was going fine and then it's not, it's hard to make that pivot. Like that, this is probably the mindset is the biggest thing for people to be able to shift. So again, our goal is to make it as easy as possible for people to ask for help, and to make sure that our clients know we are so grateful that they will let us be of assistance. We have applied for tons of grant money. Any organization in the area that was offering COVID money, we were applying for it so that we could get more resources in here. We've been doing a lot more advertising so that people know. For instance, we have a $48,000 grant to be able to help people get prescriptions, particularly people who typically our prescription assistance program is for uninsured individuals. But this is even people who have insurance but can't afford the copay. But we've had to get things in the paper because I think people think they know who ECHO serves, and we need people to know we serve anybody who needs help because some issue has impacted their life, and this pandemic is a big one. And unfortunately, we're over a hump, but we are certainly not over this. As the trickle-down effect, I saw an article today that Clemson's getting ready to furlough employees at the university this fall. I mean, there's more financial repercussions of this storm that are coming, and we hope people will turn to us. Even if at one time they donated to us, please come back and let us give back to you as a thank you for that, is the message I hope people will hear.
Yes, indeed. And you really are a resource for everyone in the community, Stephanie. You don't pick and choose, right?
No, that is right. And John, I mean, that's the biggest thing in the years I've been in this position, the last 3 years. Sometimes people will ask me questions about the people that we serve. And there's a lot of preconceived notions about what poverty looks like. You know, we like to tell people we are helping people who have grown up in situational poverty. Perhaps their life has never been particularly blessed and they've struggled. But the numbers of people that we're seeing who are in situational poverty, meaning something suddenly changes in their circumstances and they find themselves in financial distress. That can be because of a divorce. It can be because the loss of a breadwinner. It can be a sudden diagnosis, or a single mom who has a child who gets sick and is in the hospital for months on end, and she can't keep her job while she's trying to care for her child. I mean, there are so many different reasons that people walk through our door, and this pandemic is one that I would have never put on the list because I didn't quite imagine the impact it would have. But it is one of the storms that can blow through people's lives, and we're here to help those individuals. All of us, any one of us could need help from a place like ECHO, and that is the part I hope we all remember, that we do pay it forward for the day we might need that help.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Stephanie. Beverly, the lockdown has created situations in homes that can compromise the safety of children. What is the D Norton Center doing to address and ideally prevent problems of abuse and neglect before they occur?
You know, to say that this situation is stressful, it might be one of the biggest understatements of the pandemic. And what we recognize is yes, it's stressful. It's stressful for all of us, whether we're experiencing abuse or poverty, or just that our children are home, or you're sharing the house with your husband who's now working from home. There are stressors for all of us. And recognizing that stress as a community is one of the things that we have seen as a way to help prevent abuse and harm from ever happening. And that's, you know, using our social media platform to say, hey folks, this is stressful, name it, you know, talk about it. Encouraging caregivers to own their own stress, their own feelings and emotions around the children coming home from school, the children going back to school. All of that's stressful, and the grown-ups in the situation need to address their stress first, and then they can talk to their kids about their own stress and be in a better place to help their children process their stress. We also know this stress is cumulative, so it started in March, and so for families who were already in some stage of stress, like the families that we serve and have served for almost 30 years now, that stress continues to build. We recognized early on that because this is the work we do every day of helping families deal with stress, we were in a unique position to help the larger community during this particularly stressful information. So, you know, as simple things as posting, we did a series of videos with our staff teaching mindfulness techniques, breathing techniques, ways to cope with your stress, and telling the grown-ups to learn how to do it and then sit down and do it with their kids. It actually works. You know, I've done it. It actually does help relieve that stress. So doing what we can to relieve the stress, because one of the real challenges that we face is what we can't do is see children behind closed doors. And I think we all would agree that that's where the greatest concern is, right? We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And with children not in school, the teachers don't have eyes on them. As a matter of fact, I was in a meeting this morning and heard a report. We were talking about DSS reports being down by about 20%. Well, interestingly, the percentage of reports to DSS is usually around 25% of their overall reports. So I think that was a fascinating thing to realize. Okay, DSS reports are down because kids are not in school, perhaps, by about the same percentage of teachers making reports. So going back to school for a lot of children will really be important and more than just the educational level. And the fact, you know, I've heard that schools are going to call roll. I think that's going to be important to have eyes on as best the teachers can and all their pupils to make sure that everybody's showing up. You know, and it's not just about the physical or possible sexual abuse, but it also goes to neglect. You know, do the kids look like they're healthy? Because that's another place we fill in the gaps. We don't provide food. You know, we partner with folks like ECHO to make sure the family has food, or if they need uniforms or clothes. So more eyes on kids as we begin to open up is a really good thing for children in difficult situations.
And so, Beverly, what I hear you saying is you reaching out proactively to the larger community and helping people get a sense of, you know, exactly what they're experiencing. Not that they need to be told, but maybe understand how that fits into the bigger picture. Because just as we were talking about with Stephanie and needs for food and other basics, they may never have experienced the stresses of what they're going through now. Right.
You know, and our children feel our stress, right? So, and sometimes giving adults permission to feel and permission to feel wherever they are. You know, everybody's stress doesn't have to be the same. If it's your stress, then you need to address it so that you're in a better position to help, your children and your family to be strong. I will say that the media has been really, really willing to allow us a platform to get on the news, to be on, the morning shows, to give parents tips on how to talk to their kids about their stress, about, what are the challenges facing kids as they go back to school? What are the risk factors of being, hooked up to technology all day? Our children are home, so we think we're protecting them, but most all of our children are spending a lot of time using technology, and there is a risk involved in that. So, I really am pleased with our local media and their willingness to be part of the solution and really part of the prevention efforts.
We're grateful too, Beverly, for the center reaching out, actually, looking at a larger circle of people in the community that, can benefit. And certainly the children benefit when the adults are in a better place, right? When the
Absolutely.
parents and those in authority are in a better space. So
Yeah.
we're always grateful for that. And it's just great to know that we've still got you looking out for the welfare of the children first and foremost, because what happens to children, as we know, shouldn't have to happen to children. But we do everything we can to prevent it and everything we can to treat it so that they'll be better and can lead good, constructive lives. So we thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Let's pull, let's see. Rebecca, let's get you in here and see if we have a question from you or someone who's with us live on the event.
Okay, happy to, John. I hope my audio sounds okay right now. So good. So this is for both Beverly and Stephanie. And since Beverly answered last time, I'll start with Stephanie. Same question. During COVID-19, I'm sure you've done something differently, at least one or two things differently. What is something that you will continue to do when you pivoted, that you will continue to do in the future when the pandemic is over?
So the thing that comes to my mind in terms of like working with our staff, we're doing daily huddles with our team every morning. In the beginning, it was so we could compare notes about what everyone was hearing about this COVID virus. Now we're doing them twice a week, but I think the increased communications is something that I'd really like to do. And as a part of that, we generally check in to just see how everybody's doing. The work that D Norton is doing and the team over there, as well as at ECHO, sometimes can be really challenging because you're meeting people when they're not at a good place. No one's coming through to us because they're having a great day and somehow need ECHO's help or D Norton's help. And so I think recognizing the stress that comes with this work, and then add on top of it everybody's own personal stress with COVID. I think I've done a better job of checking in with my team about how they're doing and getting us to share that with each other, so that some days we know when we're having a rough day, maybe it's somebody else's turn to go ahead and jump in and be the better person to interact with a client, a donor, etc. So I think that communications and really checking in about how everybody's doing about the work we're doing is something I hope will continue to make happen after this event.
Very good. And Beverly, same question for you. What is something that you've done differently during COVID-19 that you'll continue to implement moving forward when the pandemic is over?
One of the things I mentioned earlier is the possibility of continuing mental health using telehealth. I think that there will always be a place for that because we serve all of Charleston County and part of Berkeley County, and sometimes getting to either our East Cooper location on Long Point Road or to our center downtown can be a burden on a family. So we've always been about removing barriers to service. So if getting there physically week to week is a barrier, we now have the technology in place. Face-to-face is still preferred method for delivering treatment, but getting treatment is better than not getting treatment. And the second thing I would mention is similar to Stephanie, is communication, but my point of view from that is a little bit different. We've gotten, I think, better at constant communication with our community and with our donor database, and recognizing that we need to stay in communication and telling them the stories. Right as things started closing up, especially in my world in development, there was the question, well, what do? Do you keep talking to donors? Do you leave them alone? Everybody's scared. And there was a overwhelming response from the development world to not do that. And it's held true. It has been an amazing thing to watch as we've communicated, kept our donors up to speed on how we're pivoting, what we're doing, what's different, what's new, how it's making an impact on real children, and de-identifying the stories, but sharing stories of our clients has really shown benefits. People are I told my husband over lunch today, I am amazed at the change, comparing this to like 2008 and the recession, when donors really, we all felt we needed to tighten those purse strings. I have not seen that now. People are proactive. We have donors, and I'm sure that Stephanie has as well, have had donors proactively reach out and say, what can we do? How can we help? We know y'all are stressed. We know this is hard. Like Stephanie said, we both see people in difficult circumstances. So the cases and the people coming to us, and particularly now, the cases that we're actually seeing in person are really the worst of the worst. They're the most dire cases. So to have those donors call up and say, how can I help? Wow, it has been amazing. And I've always known we lived in a really wonderfully generous community, but they really stepped up during COVID. It has been a really wonderful thing to watch.
Thanks, Beverly and Stephanie. Great question, Rebecca. Thank you for that and bringing that in. Stephanie, how about a final thought on where someone can contact you? And we've talked really mostly on the side of the needs, but as Beverly just mentioned, there are people who want to help, and they might want to reach you for that purpose as well. So a final thought and where someone can find you, please.
Great. Well, thank you. And I absolutely want to echo what Beverly said. This community we live in is tremendous, and people want to very much be a part of the solution to problems that are going on. And so we too have been so fortunate. And in a recent email that I sent out, I reminded people we've had twice as many people coming to ask for food than we did last year at the same time. So double the need means we need twice as much support from the community. And then when we ask, people are responding. And so it is my hope that through our website, which is echocharleston.org, or by calling us, we will connect to anybody who's interested, any business, any organization, any civic group, any community, any homeschooling group that wants to find a way to assist us. We will connect them. Our most recent 30 neighborhoods in 30 days, our drive to be able to fill up our wellness pantry shelf. We have 45 neighborhoods who have run community food drives in the last 30 days. And so, and we hope that won't stop, because again, we anticipate lots more people will be coming through. So we are still looking for volunteers, can always find people or ways to engage people. So again, that's also through our website. You can just click on the volunteer button and fill out an application. So and then are open to new ideas and new suggestions. We actually had a donor who called pretty early on who said, you've got to have some individuals who need some special help. And so we actually launched our Adopt a Family program that we do at Christmas. We did as a part of the pandemic, where we had some people who were getting some very specific needs for some of our clients filled. And we did an Adopt a Senior program where we helped graduating seniors get the supplies they needed to get off to college. Again, all sorts of new initiatives. So I encourage people to also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we keep people up to date about what our greatest needs are at the moment. So, and again, I'm very thankful to this community and also the Chamber for all the support they provide to ECHO.
Wonderful. Stephanie, thank you. Beverly, how about you? A final thought and where someone can get in touch with you and the center?
Final thought. I have the good fortune to work with a bunch of heroes. Our clinical staff that's remained steady and strong, and providing these essential services. It's just an honor to work with them every day, and it's an honor to work with our community who believes that children are worth it, are worth showing up and supporting the work that we do to help children and families through abuse. And similarly to something Stephanie said earlier, most of us don't ever want to find ourselves in the place where we need the services of ECHO or of D Norton. But we're here, and we're here for people who look like all of us. We're here for people who have endured years and a lifetime of hardship. But that's what we're here for. And it is a confidential service we offer. We maintain that confidentiality to the highest degree. We value volunteers, donations, creative ideas. You can find us at dnortoncenter.org. That's D-E-E, nortoncenter.org. Currently, we are not using volunteers in our lobby for health considerations with our clients. We will need volunteers as we begin to open up. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we suspect that as children go back to school and our community opens back up, those reports will begin to escalate and escalate quickly. So we are right now trying to make sure that we are prepared for that escalation. At the same time, we know that our staff has issues. Large majority of our staff are young women with young children at home. So there's a tension there of making sure that everybody has the support that they need. But that's what we're here for. We're here to see as many children as possible who need our help. And through the support of our community, we'll continue to do that.
Wonderful. Beverly, thank you so much. Thank you, Stephanie Kelley, Executive Director of East Cooper Community Outreach, ECHO, and Beverly Hutchison, Director of Development and Marketing with the D Norton Child Advocacy Center. Thanks to all of our chamber members with us live and those catching us on the recording. And a big thank you to the Mount Pleasant Chamber's own Rebecca Imholtz for keeping us on track today and each week. From all of us at the Mount Pleasant Chamber, thank you for joining us for this edition of The Pivot. Make it a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.